Welcome to Out of the Darkness with Daniel Dark. Today's incredible guest is an author, speaker, relationship marketing strategist, a founder of the 3,000,000%, and a C-suite advisor. He is a charismatic speaker. I've heard him talk about different things, and he is going to share some of the dark times in his life with us today so that we know exactly how Tim Nichols became the man he is today. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Tim Nichols.
Hey, thanks for having me, Daniel. I'm so glad to be
I
here.
appreciate you being here,
glad to
Tim.
share with
It has been my honor, and I've been wanting to talk to you in one-on-one situations. We have never had a chance to actually do that. And you are like an inspiration to me on your charismatic and the things that you do. And, that wasn't always the case, was it, Tim?
No, in fact, I didn't even dress like this before. It's been a transformation. I'll say that, Daniel.
What is some of the, dark times in your life, and what was your mental attitude at that time that has changed over the time period to become the 3,000 or 3,000,000 person that you are now?
So I'll back up and I'll just share how my mindset changed over time, even from when I'll say this: I grew up in a great home. My parents are still married and all that kind of stuff. But I will say that a lot of times the things we experience in life can really change who we are and how we respond to things. And so I'll just describe some of that, but how I progressively transformed over time. And I'll say that began with my mindset. When I graduated from college, I thought that you had to have, I don't know, I had a scarcity mindset, and I thought you had to have a government job to get a decent retirement. And in doing that, I took a government job working for the University of Georgia as a county extension agent, and I learned that you get paid for the risk you take. I was not getting paid very much at all, and I thought, well, I'm not taking any risk either. But at the time, I had gotten married while I was in college, and I would say just due to my immaturity and the maturity of when we got married and the early stages when we got married, that marriage only lasted for 3 years, and that really broke my heart for who I was. Because I was the
Mhm.
first one in my family to get divorced or anything like that, and so I felt defeated. But even then, I was going through this transition job wise too. So I took a job as an agricultural science teacher back in Texas, where I'm originally from. Well, in doing that, I just kind of accepted that as um, life happening to me, right? That I was just playing along in this role that was bigger than me. Now I'm a Christ follower, and so I try to follow God's will where I can, or try to follow God's will. But I felt very lost even in that. I felt like I was just moving along, and I ended up getting remarried while I was teaching, and that was, I would say, I was at a pretty dark place in my life where sarcasm and cynicism were parts of my everyday language. I had a very much cynical mindset, and they say misery finds company, or misery loves company. I had married someone that was that company for me. Everything was sarcastic to them. They would laugh at other people's pain, and I was laughing right there with them. But what happened was when I started remembering who I was, and started finding my feet again, we started parting ways because they didn't change. They actually became more sarcastic and cynical towards life. And we had children together and all, but what happened was there was just a separation in who we were, and so that led to another divorce. And that broke my heart because I lost my kids and all that. But at the same time, I had left being an ag teacher early in that marriage. I had left being an ag teacher and become a financial advisor. And as a financial advisor, I was taking on the weight, speaking from a psychological standpoint, I was taking on the weight and the worry of my clients that were worried about not having enough money or making enough money to not have to worry about money. And so I found myself wearing a lot of hats, if you will, that were heavy. They were heavy because of the burden there. And, I went through a lot as a financial advisor when I first started out. I I was with, I will say, I hate to give names on here. So I was with a financial firm that requires you to knock on 25 doors a day, and you had to door knock 25 doors a day. And doing that, there's a lot of anxiety that goes along with that, a
Hmm.
lot of rejection that goes along with that. And it got to where the burden of that was pretty strong. But I learned some lessons along the way in how to grow my business, also how to maintain myself emotionally. But at the time, I was really relying pretty heavy on my relationship with Christ to
Right, right.
maintain this emotional balance. And there were times when even that was, I don't know, fragile, because it was the weight of that anxiety was just so strong, because here I was
Yeah.
starting over. I was starting as an entrepreneur with this financial firm, and trying to start from scratch. It was a 100% commission job, and I
Hmm.
think that that's eventually what led to my second wife leaving, was over money, because it was about I was with that firm for about 7 years, but about 4 years in, things were looking great. Well, about that time, 2008 and 9 crash happened, and I lost everything. I was completely destroyed. And what was happening was, under that financial firm's business model, 100% commission, the commissions were charged up front. So if you had no new clients coming in, you weren't making any money.
Right,
So I
right.
found myself trying to support a family in a highly regarded industry, where I was seen as I had kind of worked my way to I would say, credibility within the community. And here I was broken, man. I was broken because I had no money coming in. My wife, one day, I remember this story. I came in from work and I was just really struggling, and we were struggling financially, we were struggling emotionally. And I said, I tell you what, I feel like I had read an article or heard a story where a psychologist was saying that being a financial advisor during that time was like having a bad motorcycle wreck that took all your skin off, and then it- the then having to endure rain and wind with your skin exposed like that. And that's
Yeah.
how the psychologist had put it. And I was sharing this story with my wife at the time, and she said, "Well, I hate to kick you while you're down, but I'm leaving, and I'm filing for divorce." And that was just a punch in the face. And man, just I don't think about it much, but it was one of those things that I will forever remember. And then the fact that my kids were 3 and 6, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm losing my kids here." And I'm going to go out on a limb here, Daniel, and share a little side story on that. I remember being out in my field at about 1 a.m. screaming out to God, please don't take my son. Please don't take my son. I figured my dog would be carried off anyway, but I knew that my namesake was in my son. And I remember screaming to God, please don't take my son. And he immediately interrupted me. I knew it was God talking, so, in my consciousness, because it interrupted my flow of thought there. And I was like, please don't take my son. And it was like he grabbed me by the face and said, I gave you mine. And I thought, holy moly, that's the first time I've ever felt where God was speaking directly to me.
Yeah.
And that just was such a shock to me. And you know what I did? I quit crying and I stood up. I brushed myself off and I went back inside. And I learned at that point that my kids were given to me as a gift to be a steward of. They were not mine. They were God's to manage. And I was like, God, thank you for not killing them in a car accident or something like that. They are yours. If you need to take them, take them. But you gave them to me to manage. And if this is the end of my management for them, then that's fine. I will manage them however you ask me to do that from now on. And so it took me a while for that mindset to really set in. But it allowed me a little bit of a peace to move forward with what I need to do. Well, the rejection was so strong from not only losing my marriage, and then on top of that, not having the income from the with the market doing what it was doing. The rejection was so strong, I ended up walking away from the financial industry. And
Yeah.
that was 2009. And I went into group benefits thinking, because I had seen some success there as we were trying to survive. And so I went into group benefits thinking, well, maybe this is the answer. Maybe I can make it here and just find something to survive here. And so really that led me, I don't know if for any of your listeners that have been divorced, they would probably, I would say, recognize this, but when you go through a divorce, there's about a year where you don't even know who you are and you do stupid things.
Mhm.
Would you agree with that, Daniel?
Yes, I would. I
And
When I had my divorce and everything, it was one of those type things where I had read a article later on that said people that have been married over 20 years, the men, if they did not instigate the divorce, over 80% of the men did not know that they were getting a divorce until it happened. And I
wow,
had
I
no
believe
clue.
that. Wow.
But when it came to, everybody has their own epiphanies. What was the first epiphany that you had, either growing up or, later on in life? What was that big epiphany that really stands out in your life?
That's a good question. An epiphany about what? Because
About
I've
Tim
had
Nichols.
several about Tim Nichols. I would say I'll even add to that. So as a response, so going through that divorce and being out of the industry for 10 months, I actually went back into the business. And in 2012, I went independent, which was another step. I went full entrepreneurial. And it was at about that point when I had that epiphany, where it took me that long from 2009 to 2012. It took me that long to get my heart back, right? To be able
Mm-hmm.
to face the potential for rejection again. And in 2012, I started over as a financial advisor independently without the big name banks and brokerage firms. And I was going through hell in 2012. But at the time, I didn't understand that that would be my story from then on. So 2012, I went to work for a big bank for a little while as a financial advisor, and that actually drove me into debt because they were stabbing me in the back the whole time as I was trying to get paid commission. And I just thought, man, I got to get out of this. I got to go independent. So I went independent. Get this, Daniel. I started off with zero money. All I had was hope. I had no marketing budget. I had no income, nothing. And moved to this town where I didn't know anyone. And for those of you who are interested what 3 million% means, I grew my business by 3 million% within my first 12 months of starting that practice. So I started Nichols Wealth Management, but I grew by 3 million% within 12 months in a town where I didn't know anyone. Right? It's those strategies that I train people on now. But going through that, I lost my electricity 3 times. I had my electricity cut off 3 times during that first year of entrepreneurship, right? And at the same time, what made it worse was I'd gotten remarried back in 2010. So my third marriage now. I had gotten remarried, and praise God that I've got such a trusting and encouraging wife that said, hey, I think it's okay for you to go independent. But in doing that, I walked out in faith, and I felt called to do that. I was scared to death. I never would have recommended anybody do that. But I would say that whole year was a transformational epiphany of that level. Even though we were going through such hard times, it wasn't until 2013, year 2 in that business, that God caused me to look back and see how he had provided that whole time. 3 months out of that, I did not receive any income. And then that 4th month, I received $60,000 in commissions from one deal. That was purely God's provision. And it allowed me to go back and catch up on my bills from the 3 months prior. And it wasn't until that 2013 year that I got to see that epiphany hit me, that God had provided for me all along, but I was just enduring, just trying to survive that first year as an entrepreneur there. Well, where things really changed for me, I mean, I went from survival to progressively getting better and better. So 2016 is where I had this 3 million% epiphany. I had been mentoring so many businesses to grow like I had grown, and teaching them the strategies that I used. I thought to write a book. So I just got to where I couldn't mentor them anymore. I was trying to shortcut that process and just write a book and say, here's what I did. If you go do this, you'll be successful, right? But what hit me in writing that book, the epiphany was, that wasn't about me. I was teaching them how to do what I did, but it wasn't about me. And I learned my calling was to walk through the hard things with entrepreneurs and to go through, give them hope. That's what my calling was. That was my epiphany. I realized the reason that I had been through everything that I had been through was to become this resource of hope, encouragement, and basically train these businesses how to endure it, how to navigate it, and how to thrive through it.
Will your process work for any business?
Yes. It has been proven to work for any business. I've had over 200 businesses go through my program. I've had dentists, surgeons, CEOs of companies, small businesses. I've even had home repair service companies go through my program, entrepreneurs. It works for any business. But here's what it is, Daniel. In giving these businesses hope, I give them basically a shortcut. If they apply these strategies, it growth hacks influence in their market. So it puts them in a thought leader role within their market. And the faster they implement it, the faster that comes. Okay. But what happens is revenue and referral generation comes from that. And so it sounds really easy what I'm going to explain to you next. It's creating strategic relationships by deepening relationships quickly. It's elevating your profile within your market by engaging and not just participating, becoming memorably visible, like you and I, the way we dress, that's memorably visible. And then leveraging networks. So Bob Bodine in his book, The Power of Who, talks about you already know everyone you need to know to be successful. Okay, you just got to learn to ask the right questions and connect with them in the right way. All right, so that's leveraging networks, building credibility. When I started off, I didn't know anybody in that community that I went to, and I had heavy competition, and they were all under brand names, and I was just under Nichols Wealth Management. Who cares, right? But what I learned to do was build my own credibility through mentorship. So I started mentoring other businesses, and I became very important to those businesses I mentored. And then establishing community was the last one of those. So we have creating strategic relationships, elevating your profile, leveraging networks, building credibility, and establishing community. By doing that, though, by applying those strategies, what we do is we make ourselves somewhat of a mentor or an influencer in that market. And in my hardest times, going through all the loss that I've been through and all of that, sometimes I would have trouble getting out of bed. But what God would tell me every morning is go love on people. And I was like, that doesn't make money. He's like,
So
it will.
God put the spurs
go
to
love
you
on
every morning, huh?
Yeah.
Get
yeah.
out of the chute.
And the thing
Go.
was, yeah. And it was just the word was go love on people. And so that was really the mission I took, was just to go help people endure and give them hope and encourage them.
That sounds wonderful, Tim. In doing that, you have probably increased the number of people that you know now because you help people understand the people that they know. Am I understanding that correctly?
Right. Right. And so, like, I've had 2 coaching calls already this morning, one with a doctor and one with a CEO of an IT company, and their experience level and just opening their eyes and how they view their current relationships now is completely different than what it was a month ago.
Yeah.
And to see the transformation begin to happen with them, and what they're doing is they're speaking into other people and they're encouraging others and mentoring others. But what happens is referral generation brings revenue, and it grows their influence in the market because they're going out and doing what I did. It's all relationship development, helping people to know you, like you, and trust you.
Yeah. It's like, people that come to my trolley and everything, they come out here because they trust that I know what I'm talking about on what they're wanting.
Right.
That, and I can educate them on what they're wanting to learn about. Those are things
Right.
that, I've spent, 30 something years, learning about. Never thought about having a business with it again. I had one years ago, and then that little thing called NAFTA came into effect, if you remember that. And the
Yep.
company that I was working for, 6 months after NAFTA hit, closed down.
Hmm.
So, 100 something employees were out of business, were
Yep.
out of jobs. Me being on, the higher echelon and everything, I stayed until about the very end, but that was it. And NAFTA was probably one of the worst things and best things that ever happened in my life, because it made me go out there and do things that were uncomfortable.
It created opportunities that you didn't know you had.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
Came a
right.
chef after that, and owned a restaurant later on, and then went on from there.
Yeah.
That when I had my restaurants, when I had my stroke. So
Oh no. I hear that's a pretty stressful job.
it's a very stressful job, and when you've got three partners that are on their side but not on your side, it becomes even more stressful.
I bet it does. I bet it
Um,
does.
but you started out as an employee. You
Mhm.
upgraded that to where you're a commissioned employee. And a lot of people say, well,
Yeah.
that's not really an upgrade. Well, a good salesman will normally make more than any regular job that you've got.
Yeah.
And you're probably making good money for a little while there.
Yeah. I
And
was.
and then all of a sudden, the market crashed
Right.
after um and you had opened up your own company at that point in time.
Right.
Those type of things, when it comes to life, you expected to see the market crash, didn't you? Being a financial
Yeah.
advisor.
Actually, I had people upset with me because the company I was working with, they would give us talking points at the beginning of every week, and none of those talking points were the market's going to crash. And my ex-father-in-law at the time was the dean of business at a local university. And he said, how do your people not know this? It's not like it's a surprise. It comes on like a cold that turns into a flu that turns into pneumonia. So he's like, how do they not know this? Well, that kind of leads to another story, if you don't mind me adding in here real
I
quick.
do not mind, and that's the
Um,
reason we went there.
you know, after experiencing the crash in 2008 and 9, and then after him saying that, I got to really thinking about that, going, how did they not know? And I think it's easy to, the market's been manipulated quite a few times in history, and advisors would say, well, it just always goes up, right? It's time value of money, you leave your money in there. But I saw it go away real quick in 2008 and 9. Right, and I thought, well, was there something I could have done about it? And really there was, and I learned what those things were. So in 2015 and 16, I started feeling and seeing the same things that I'd experienced in 2008 and 9. And I started reading things from hedge fund traders and stuff like that that led me to believe something negative was coming, right? And being the Christ follower that I am, I started praying a whole lot about it, going, God, is this about to happen again? And so I just knew that I wanted to reposition all of my clients to where they wouldn't have to endure that. And so progressively from 2015 to 2019, I really started backing them away, becoming more and more conservative. And you could say that I got into I'm gonna say I really kind of went contrarian, where I started I didn't believe everything that the news was telling me. I didn't believe everything that the financial industry was telling me. I was reading, I read probably 30 to 50 books from different hedge fund people, different influencers within the economists and people like that. And I just wasn't believing everything that the media was saying, and so I ended up repositioning myself. But then as time went on, let's say we get closer to 2018, 19, I really started to feel that something bad was coming, and I didn't know exactly what it was. And so I started praying about it, and about 2018, going, God, if what's about to happen, or if what happened in 2008 and 9 is about to happen again, I can't endure this. I will die. I will have a heart attack, I'll have a stroke, but something's going to break in my body and I'm going to die. And I was like, if what I think could happen is going to happen. I would like to get off of this bus. And so I felt like I've been having that prayer since 2018, and that was through my 3 million% program. While I was still an advisor, was coming together. I'd written curriculum around that. People were joining my program. I was mentoring a lot of businesses, but I was still running my financial practice. Well, 2019 comes along, and here I've been praying this whole time. Well, I had leaders already built out then within my training program where they were my mentees, were mentoring other businesses. Well, they started coming to me, and I taught them to speak hard truth into one another, tactfully, you know. And so I had 12 of my leaders. Let's back that up. 6 leaders came to me over 3 months and asked me individually, "What are you going to do with Nichols Wealth Management?" And I was like, "What do you mean? What am I going to do with it? I'm not going to do anything with it. It's going to continue to grow while I continue to grow my 3 million% program." Well, at the same time, I had a book out and I was trying to get speaking engagements, but compliance was saying, "We don't want you to get paid for speaking engagements. You can sell books and you can be reimbursed for travel, but we don't want you to get paid for speaking engagements." And I was going, that was my financial compliance. And I was going, man, I don't know if that's going to work for me. Well, then another 6 came to me over the next 3 months asking me the same thing. So I had 12 different leaders in my program come to me over a period of 6 months asking me about what I was going to do in Nichols Wealth Management. And I thought, I don't know that this is me, and I don't know that this is circumstantial. I think this could be God talking. I really started saying that after the first 6 came. And so I started really focusing my prayer on what is next. Well, that 12th person was my older brother, who is still a financial advisor. And he had been following the story, but he was not completely engaged with it. He's in a different market and everything. And his advice to me was, or his question to me when he called me out of the blue was, really is more advice. I think you need to make a decision. You either need to drop your whole 3 million% deal and focus on your financial clients, or sell your practice and focus on your 3 million% clients. And I was like, that's the deal. I know that you don't even know what you're telling me right now, but that's an answer to prayer, and that's the answer to prayer I needed. And I got on the phone that afternoon with my broker dealer, and I started the process to sell my practice that day. And so I had my process, I had my financial practice completely sold, and I received my last, and it started in April 2019. I received the last check for the sale of my practice in November 2019, and March 2020, COVID hits.
Mm-hmm.
So God actually got me off the bus, and through the sale of my practice, gave me enough money to endure 2020 and start my training business, my coaching and consulting business. And so here we are, that was 2020. Here we are in 2022. Just hit brand new numbers. I've got major consulting clients coming in now, but it's really neat to see how God is working. And the 2 biggest clients I've ever gotten were in the last month, and there was not a thing I did that I know of. They didn't come from
What
my marketing or anything. They just
was
came
it?
to me. God, it's like God told me.
Was the biggest client that you got God?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and these guys just came to me ready to do business. They just said, "Hey, we've heard about what you do. We are interested in doing it. What do you need to do? What do you need us to do to sign up?" That was pretty cool.
So, in the last few minutes that we've got together, tell our listeners how they can get in touch with Tim Nichols and the 3 million% club.
So you can reach me, reach my website is number 3 and then spell out 1,000,000%, all run together, .com. or you can reach me at tim@3millionpercent.com. So tim@3millionpercent.com is my email address. I would love to have a conversation with your listeners if they are interested in learning how to apply the strategies that I used to grow my own business by 3 million% within 12 months in a town where I knew no one.
Okay. And the last question that I have for you, Tim, is a new business person, creative, energetic, but just doesn't think they've got what it takes to be a business person, or that they don't deserve it, or they don't, what would be the one thing that Tim Nichols would tell them?
I would say that the trick to growing a business from scratch is to build relationships as quickly as possible, because the one thing that's going to set you apart, it doesn't matter what you know or what you feel confident that you know, or if you feel like you've competition that knows more than you do, people will do business with you if they know you, like you, and trust you. So the one thing that you've got to do is build a relationship with them as quickly as possible. Okay. And in doing that through the relationship, they will determine if they know you, like you, and trust you to do business with you. So it's almost, it doesn't even matter what you're selling or anything like that. Um, Man, Daniel, I heard of a coach the other day that gets paid $8,000 to teach people how to do a handstand. Is that not the craziest thing you've ever heard? And I would have thought that would have never worked as a business model.
So
And
did you learn how to do one?
no, because I wasn't going to pay them $8,000 to do that. But the fact is that people will do business with you almost no matter what you're selling if they know you, like you, and trust you well enough. But as entrepreneurs, here's my main encouragement to you. In the depression will come. You'll go through economic cycles, entrepreneurial cycles, emotional waves, all of it. It feels like a roller coaster sometimes. But in the downturns, in the low parts, the best advice I can give you is to go love on people, because that's when your business is really made, is how you respond and how you endure and how you thrive.
Well, I'm going to share one thing with you, if you can read it,
Please.
if I can find it.
Someone thinks you are wonderfully mysterious. I love it.
That was a fortune cookie that I got the other day at a little restaurant, and I was just like, yes, that's a keeper. That's a keeper. And my
You need
wife was
to put
sitting
that
there
in your
with me,
hat.
and my wife was sitting there with me and everything. And I was like, is it you? She goes, no, you're not mysterious anymore to me. No.
Yeah, I would encourage you to put that one in your hat band with your others.
With my other stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But I appreciate your time with me today, Tim. I know that you're a very busy man. You've got to be going to different places. And if you ever need anything that I can be of help with you, let me know. And people out there that are listening to this right now, know that no matter how dark your days are looking right now, you have the flicker of light inside of you that you can be the shining beacon for the world to see. Only thing you've got to do is believe. This is Daniel Dark. Until we're able to talk again, wishing you peace and love.